Fellas, it feels like as soon as someone becomes champion in the UFC, the first discussion is who's going to take the belt off them or who's going to dethrone them and take the belt off them. And I'm going to do the opposite of that today. I'm going to be picking contenders, and by contenders, I'm going to count everyone in the top 5, because if I was doing legitimate contenders who deserve a title shot, there'd literally be like 2 or 3 for every division, and we'd have limited choices. So I'll count everyone in the top 5, but we're going to be picking contenders. Which contender will be the easiest fight for the champion. I'm also not going to count people who the champion has already fought, because it feels a bit unfair to do that. But starting off with Jon Jones, I think the easiest contender in the heavyweight division for Jon Jones is Alexander Volkov. Now, he is a contender. He's on a 3-fight winning streak, all by way of finish, and I think within a few more wins, he could be fighting for the belt. But I feel like for Jon Jones, this is his easiest fight. I know, a few of you are going to be thinking about Stipe Miocic. What about Stipe? He's old. He got knocked out back in 2021. But I actually think stylistically, Stipe is a harder fight for Jon Jones than Alexander Volkov because of the wrestling and the boxing. And I know that Volkov's a great kickboxer and he does have somewhat underrated grappling, but I just feel like Jon Jones versus Volkov goes very similar to Aspinall versus Volkov or Jon Jones versus Cyril Gane, in the sense that they might feel each other out for a bit, but I just see Jon Jones eventually taking him down and submitted him in the first round, just like he did against Cyril Gane. On the feet, and listen, Volkov's a good striker, he's a great kickboxer, but I don't think he's going to be able to dominate Jones on the feet or anything like that. I know it's heavyweight Jones, not prime Jones, but I still just don't see Volkov giving Jones much problem. So I'm going to say out of all the contenders in the heavyweight division, I think Volkov's the easiest fight for Jones. I really do. Like I said, Stipe, I do think Jones would finish Stipe, but I reckon it'd actually get in the later rounds. Whereas a Volkov, just because of the styles, and you're going to hear me talking about styles and stylistically a lot in this video, but just because of the styles, I think Jones would take Volkov out there pretty quickly. So for heavyweight, I'm going Volkov. Light heavyweight, Johnny Walker. Yeah, I think Johnny Walker would be the easiest fight for Pereira. Now, Johnny Walker's definitely a contender. He's about to fight Magomed Ankalaev, and if he beats Magomed Ankalaev, he could be in talks of a title shot. But you're putting one of the goofiest, chinniest contenders, who's a good striker but loses in the most goofy ways, against a dangerous and elite striker coming off a knockout win to Jiří Procházka and a win over Jan Blachowicz. I think Pereira would sleep Johnny Walker pretty effortlessly. Now, like I said, there are problems that Johnny Walker can give him, but I just don't think he can give him, more problems than a Jiří Procházka would have been able to do. I think Jiří's more crafty, he's a better striker than Johnny Walker. Maybe he'll do better than Jan Blachowicz, even though Blachowicz's game plan was just to, take him down. I just see Pereira sleeping Johnny Walker. I think out of all the contenders right now, he's definitely the easiest. There's Jamal Hill as well, who's a contender, but I think that could actually be a difficult fight for Pereira due to the power of Jamal Hill. But yeah, I just see Pereira sleeping Johnny Walker just like Hill did. And listen, like I said, I'm not here to disrespect Johnny Walker. That'll be a great fight. I'm sure it'd be fun. But I think out of all the current contenders, Pereira's going to put Johnny Walker out of there. I see him chinning him, and I just don't see Johnny Walker having especially for 5 rounds, I don't see him picking up a win over Pereira. The guy went to a decision with Anthony Smith, and now he's about to fight Pereira. 5 rounds? No, thank you. Middleweight, Sean Strickland. I think the easiest contender for Sean Strickland right now is Marvin Vettori. Now, I know a few of you are going to be thinking, or saying that, Marvin Vettori's not a contender, he's just been battered by Jared Cannonier, and you would be right, but because he's ranked number 5, I'm going to count him in this list, because let's be honest, he's only like two wins away from a title shot. If he gets a good win over Brendan Allen and then beats another contender, they're going to have to give him a shot eventually, even though he's just been battered. But yeah, Marvin Vettori would be an easy fight for Sean Strickland. If Strickland's fought grapplers and strikers of every kind. He's fought strikers like Israel Adesanya. He's fought multiple grapplers throughout his career like Brendan Allen and Jack Hermansson. I don't see what problem Marvin Vettori poses to Sean Strickland. Listen, I don't think Strickland's going to finish Marvin Vettori, but I think he's going to walk him down, pick him apart, and outstrike him for 5 rounds straight. And I don't think Vettori is going to pose any threat to Strickland. He's got decent wrestling, but like I said, Strickland, I don't think he's going to get taken down or even merely out-grappled by Marvin Vettori. And then when it comes to the feet, I just think Marvin Vettori's too basic. He's just an extremely basic fighter, and multiple times, Marvin Vettori has struggled to beat elite competition. He failed against Adesanya twice, he failed against Whittaker, and just now he's failed against Jared Cannonier. So, and Sean Strickland did much better against Cannonier than Vettori did. So I'm going to say that Sean Strickland's easiest contender to beat is a Marvin Vettori. Just too basic, not good enough, and I see Strickland walking him down and just battering him for 5 rounds. Not finishing him though, because we know about Vettori's chin. Welterweight. Now, this one's going to be a bit of a surprising one. I'm going Belal Muhammad. Now, originally, I've said this in the past, I think, not Hamzat Chimaev, what's his name? Shavkat Rakhmonov is stylistically easier for Leon Edwards to beat than a Belal Muhammad, because he's, doesn't really have much head movement, not the best striker, heavy grappler, but Leon's used to that now. But I've got to respect Shavkat in the sense that, you look at his resume and the amount of finishes he has and the wins he's got and the way he's beat people. I'm going to have to give it to Belal Muhammad. I don't think this is an easy fight for Leon, by the way. Just because I'm saying it's the easiest contender, that doesn't mean I think it's going to be an easy fight. But Leon's been used to these grapplers. He's had back-to-back-to-back grapplers. He's had to fight Colby. His grappling weren't a problem. The rematch against Usman, or the trilogy against Usman, his grappling wasn't a problem. I understand in the rematch it was a problem, to be honest, but he's learned from that. So he's just having back-to-back-to-back grapplers, and I don't think Belal Muhammad's going to pose a big grappling threat that the other ones couldn't do, especially Usman. And when it comes to the feet, listen, I do think Belal Muhammad's got better feet than we think. But again, Leon's a way better striker than Belal Muhammad. Leon's an S-tier striker, and I think Leon would take care of Belal Muhammad pretty comfortably. As much as Belal Muhammad deserves this shot and he could still beat a lot of these contenders, even Gilbert Burns, I think, would give a tougher fight to Leon Edwards than Belal Muhammad would, just because styles make fights. And yeah, I don't see him chinning Belal Muhammad. I don't think he'll get finished, and I do think it could be a somewhat competitive fight, but I'm having Leon beating Belal Muhammad. I just don't see a world where Belal Muhammad can win unless he takes him down and dominates him for 5 rounds like Usman nearly did in the rematch. I don't see Belal Muhammad winning. So for Leon Edwards, I'm saying his easiest contender is the guy he's most likely to fight next in Belal. Islam Makhachev. I'm going Dustin Poirier. Again, it's another one of these cases where you think, is Poirier really a contender? Because I know he's just been knocked out cold, but listen, he's ranked, I think he's ranked number 4. I'm going to count him as a contender because, again, he's only a few wins away from a title shot. Not that that's going to happen, but it theoretically could happen. But yeah, I think Islam Makhachev would play with Dustin Poirier like he's playing with his food. I don't see any world where Dustin Poirier gives him any threats. I could easily see Islam Makhachev knocking him out. Listen, I understand Poirier's got great boxing and is this BJJ black belt, but we've seen from Makhachev that he's a powerful striker. He's great at mixing his striking with his grappling, and he just knocked out Volkanovski. He could easily, well, maybe not easily, but it wouldn't surprise me if he was able to sleep Poirier. And then when it comes to grappling, Poirier's got a history of losing to grapplers. He's lost to Charles Oliveira. He's lost to Khabib, and he's just coming off a brutal knockout as well to Justin Gaethje. I think Islam Makhachev beats Dustin Poirier pretty quickly. I think he beats him on the feet, then eventually mixes his striking with his grappling, takes him down comfortably, and beats the shit out of him with ground and pound until he eventually finds a rear naked choke. And that's how I see Islam Makhachev versus Poirier going. So, listen, Poirier, he could definitely beat a few of these other contenders, but stylistically, Islam is the definition of a nightmare matchup, and we've seen Poirier try these guys before and he's lost, and he's just coming off a brutal knockout. So the easiest contender for Islam is Poirier. Volkanovski. Now, Volkanovski was difficult because he's kind of already lapped the division. He's beaten so many of these people in his division, but I'm going with Arnold Allen. Now, off the bat, you're going to think Arnold Allen's not an easy fight. What are you talking about? But like I said, Volkanovski's beaten everyone already. He's beaten Rodriguez. He's beaten Max Holloway. He's beaten Brian Ortega. He's beaten a lot of these guys already. The only guys, like in the top 5 who hasn't beat, I believe, is Arnold Allen and Ilia Topuria. I guess you could count Josh Emmett if you want to call him a contender, but I think Arnold Allen would be the easiest contender right now for Volkanovski. Topuria, I definitely think Topuria is a more tougher fight for Volkanovski than Arnold Allen is, just because of the multiple martial arts. He's got the insane wrestling. He's got the power. Now, Arnold Allen's a scrapper. Listen, he's not a bad fighter by any means. I don't have him beating Evloev, but again, he's not a bad fighter. He only lost to Holloway by decision, so it's not that bad. But I just see Volkanovski piecing Arnold Allen apart like it's nothing. Maybe even a finish like he did against Yair Rodriguez. I don't see any threats really from Arnold Allen to Volkanovski. Again, maybe he catches him because Allen does have power. I mean, we saw what he did to Dan Hooker. And he's also beaten Calvin Kattar before. But yeah, like in every martial art, in every aspect of the fight, the experience, everything goes to Volkanovski in this fight. And unfortunately for Allen, I do see Volkanovski beating him probably easier than how Holloway beat him as well. Maybe even a finish as well if it's 5 rounds. So for Volkanovski, I'm saying out of all the contenders right now who he hasn't faced, the easiest, in my opinion, is Arnold Allen. Sean O'Malley, I think it's Marlon Vera. Again, the guy that is about to fight. Pretty much because everyone else in the division are stylistic nightmares. Now, I'm not saying that Sean O'Malley has a history of losing to grapplers. The guy just slept to grappler, if anything. But He's got Merab to deal with, he's got Cejudo to deal with, he's got Sandhagen to deal with. These are all guys, heavy grapplers, especially in their last few fights, who can stand. Aljo's a heavy grappler, but he's a different type to the rest in terms of, you know, takedown output and everything. And on top of that, I do think all these three people are better strikers than Aljamain Sterling. So I feel like stylistically, these are all really difficult fights for Sean O'Malley. I feel like Marlon Vera is definitely a contender. I mean, the guy's fighting for a belt that's been announced. But I don't think Marlon Vera is going to get past O'Malley. And for that reason, I think out of all these current contenders, Marlon Vera is the easiest fight for Sean O'Malley. Yeah, Marlon Vera just hasn't looked great in his last few. He had a really close win where there was barely any output against Pedro Munoz. Before that, it was a dominating loss to Corey Sandhagen. His last win was Dominic Cruz. So I've been way more impressed by Sean O'Malley recently, being able to get past Yan, being able to knock out Aljamain Sterling. I just think recently, in the recent fights that they've had, Sean O'Malley has looked way more impressive than Marlon Vera. And compared to the rest of the contenders, I mean, some of the contenders have beaten Marlon Vera. So for that reason, I'm going to have to say that he's the easiest contender. And then Pantoja. I think the easiest fight for Pantoja out of all the contenders right now, I'm going to go Kai Kara-France. Again, it could be another one of these things where he's already beaten a few of the contenders. He's beaten Brandon Moreno. He's beaten Brandon Royval. But I just think, first of all, stylistically, it's another difficult fight for Kai Kara-France. I mean, Pantoja's a good striker. I mean, he might lose his stamina in the end, but he's a good striker, to say the least. He hung in there with Brandon Moreno, who was able to finish Kai Kara-France on the feet. He hung in there with Brandon Royval. And then we look at Kai Kara-France, and the guy's got, a little bit of a history of losing to grapplers. Not losing to grapplers, but doing bad against grapplers. I mean, I know the fight with Amir Albazi was super close, but there was multiple moments in that fight where he was having trouble dealing with the grappling. He's been submitted by Brandon Royval before as well. And I just think it's another one of these fights where Pantoja's going to go in there and dominate most of the fight. I think it goes very similar to Brandon Royval versus Pantoja, except maybe if Royval had slightly more power. So unless Kai Kara-France can finish him in the later rounds, I just see it being a dominating win for Alejandro Pantoja. And that's what I think is going to happen if he was ever to fight Kai Kara-France. On top of that, he also is on a 2-fight losing streak to Brandon Moreno and Amir Albazi. So for that reason, I do think that Pantoja, his easiest fight in the division right now, is a Kara-France. But that is my easiest contender for every current UFC champion. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you agree. But yeah, thank you for watching.